Okay, we're going to get started here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No, you can't hear me. Now you can hear me. Okay. If you want to grab your seat, we would like to get started. First of all, thank you, a very warm thank you for braving this winter chill and coming out today. It's so great to see all of you, and to those of you at home, you were probably smart, huh, staying in? But you missed the cookies, so yeah, so never mind. It's always a trade-off, right? Just some thank yous. First of all, to Paige Pilata back there and Josh Bryant over here. I couldn't do this without their support. They're the best. And the Bexley Public Library and Ben Heckman, of course, so thank you. Thank you to Hope Taft, who I don't see. She's supposed to be here, and she's probably on her way, maybe trying to find a place to park. But it was Hope's vision and her desire to keep gardeners engaged in the winter months, which is the reason that Rooted in Bexley was formed. I want to thank Cindy Howe, who unfortunately has furnace issues and can't be here, for her help with my flyers, and Susan Quintens, my Director of Strategic Affairs of Rooted in Bexley, for their help with today's program. And just for those of you who may not be aware, Rooted in Bexley is a dynamic collaboration between the community gardens, the Tree and Public Gardens Commission, and the Bloomers, all based here in Bexley, and the Heritage Gardens at the Ohio Governor's Residence, which is also a Bexley place. And I want to thank my friends from Heritage Gardens who helped out today with cookies and setting up. They always are great. I want to announce on Wednesday, February the 12th, our next program. We're very excited to bring in Belinda Gore, one of the founders of the Great Circle Alliance. She's going to talk about the work that they are doing to raise awareness of the ancient monumental indigenous sites of Ohio. And for those of you who may not be aware, Ohio has a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's first and only, and that's those Hopewell ceremonial earthworks. So that's going to be a fascinating talk. And thanks to Deborah Kanapke for serving as hostess that day. On March 5th, we are beyond thrilled to welcome Zoe Schlanger. She's a New York Times bestselling author of The Light Eaters. She's also a staff writer for The Atlantic, who focuses on climate issues. If you've not ever read any of her articles, I encourage you to find them online. Her article with regard to Detroit and the people who live near the factories is just unbelievable. It's an incredible story. We're going to be partnering with our friends across the street, Gramercy Books, for this event. And we're so grateful to the Bexley Community Foundation for their generous support of that program. In addition, we will be making a very special announcement at that program with regard to our friend, former First Lady Hope Taft. We're just beyond excited to announce a new partnership, and that's all I'm going to say. And it starts at 1:15. So plan to be here for that. Now, more than ever, the need to save and protect old-growth forests and tracts of intact wildlands is so vital to the health of our planet. As I speak, the state of Ohio is actively considering a request to frack 383 acres in Jockey Hollow Wildlife Area in Belmont and Harrison County. The Arc of Appalachia, as you're about to hear, is doing their part to preserve large swaths of natural areas in southeast Ohio and West Virginia. Our speakers today are Kevin Eigel. He's a lifelong organic gardener and former full-time organic farmer. And he is dedicated to land conservation and restoration of native habitat in Ohio. He has been a supporter of the Arc of Appalachia for 25 years and has participated in many of their educational programs over the years. Marcia Miller is a lifelong yoga teacher, plant, and book lover. She has been a disciple of the land held by the Arc of Appalachia for decades. Through the Arc, she has learned about the miraculous mysteries and delights of trees, caterpillars, moths, prairies, singing insects, and native plants. Kevin and Marcia live on a farm near the Darby Creek, west of Columbus, and they are restoring it to a prairie and forest, which is wonderful. And Stan Sells is retired, but he and his wife have been land stewards at the Highlands Native Sanctuary for the past 22 years. During that time, he has been involved in converting a number of acres from field to forest, combating non-native invasives in a 50-acre area, and has led guided tours through the sanctuary's caves and across sanctuary trails. He has also assisted on numerous spring wildflower festivals and Mothapalooza events at the sanctuary. At this time, I'd like to give you a warm welcome to Stan, Marcia, and Kevin.
First off, yay for you all. When I heard this was going to be available on Zoom too, and I saw the temperatures, I thought, we're going to be in an empty room, and we are not. The three of us are here in large part because of the vision of a woman named Nancy Stranahan. And she couldn't be here today, and she asked us to be here in her stead. And I thought it made sense to start what we're going to do this afternoon with her words. She's a beautiful speaker and writer, and this is the mission statement of the Arc of Appalachia in her words. There once lived a forest. It was a nearly unbroken forest that covered the eastern third of our nation, a natural community that had sustained itself without interruption for over 40 million years and boasted a complexity second only to the tropical rainforest. Take that in. The forests of this area are almost as complex as the rainforests that we're so familiar with. Then, in a remarkably short time, our ancestors took the forest to the ground before they could know the immensity of what they had lost. We must courageously face the fragmentation and diminishment of this once great forest and turn loss into decision. The old-growth forest is just a thought form away. We are the children of the children of the children of the people who cut the forest down. We can be the generation that chooses to bring the forest back. Our work is simple and straightforward: to buy and permanently preserve the best of the best forest communities still remaining in the Appalachian heartland through fee simple acquisitions and the donation of conservation easements. The earth is exceptionally fond of communities, so much so that she covered nearly every square inch of her land with them, and they fill much of her waters as well. And she has been focusing on community building over 3 billion years. Individuals are ephemeral, and species come and go over geologic time. It is only the communities that endure literally for millions of years. Only now, after surviving eons of droughts, volcanic eruptions, glaciers, forest fires, and continental collisions, is America's eastern hardwood forest community in trouble. The reason, of course, is us. And yet, the same species that can fragment, diminish, and destroy can choose to heal, reconnect, and sustain. Here at the Arc, nature is our guide. If her highest priority is to devote the entire planet's resources in community making, then here, we at the Arc of Appalachia wish to join her in this work. And now you'll hear from Stan Sells.
Good afternoon, and congratulations on coming out on a very cold day. I do appreciate that. You've heard Nancy's mission statement, But I'd ask you to, let's step back 30 years, because it all began back in 1995 when Nancy and her husband, Larry, co-founded the nonprofit organization called Highlands Nature Sanctuary, which ultimately became the Arc of Appalachia. The initial focus was on the Rocky Fork Canyon and the natural theme park of 7 caves, all of which was in Highland County in the south central, southwest part of the state. But in 1995, Nancy had no money and no land, but she realized that this was a very significant geological area where several geological zones converge, resulting in an amazing biodiversity. So the initial vision was to preserve this amazing natural area for future generations. But now if we jump back to today, the Arc has now developed into one of the largest independent nature conservation organizations in Ohio, having purchased 12,000 acres of woodlands, gorges, waterfalls, prairies, swamps, and ancient indigenous earthworks in the state. The Arc's first preserve, the Highlands Nature Sanctuary, is now composed of 2,720 acres and represents 76 individual purchases. So I want to just take one of those purchases. There's actually so much history over the last 30 years. We'd be here all day. But this is just one example of how the Arc has developed over the years. And in doing so, I want to digress for a minute too into one of the components that has been really an incredible integral part of the Arc's success, and that's the Clean Ohio Fund. The Clean Ohio Fund is a $400 million fund initiative originally approved by Ohio voters in the year 2000 and renewed in all 88 counties in 2008. As a public-private partnership, Clean Ohio restores, protects, and connects Ohio's natural and urban spaces by preserving open space and farmland, safeguarding and improving stream and river quality, and improving outdoor recreation and cleaning up brownfields. There are 4 separate Clean Ohio programs, but one of them is the Open Space Conservation Program, which is designed to preserve and restore open spaces, sensitive ecological areas, and stream corridors, and is eligible only to nonprofit entities. So early on, Nancy saw the potential for the fund to purchase property to expand the nature preserves. The kicker was that the grant applications required a 25% match under its public-private partnership requirements. So about the same time that the Clean Ohio Fund came into existence, my wife and I purchased 3 acres in the heart of the Highlands Nature Sanctuary. And in doing so, Nancy planted the seed that we might think about donating the property to the sanctuary at some point, but retain life estate with it. And also about the same time, a 300-acre parcel of undeveloped woodland with significant biodiversity and adjacent to the Rocky Fork Gorge went on the market. Again, Nancy immediately saw this as a prime candidate for a Clean Ohio application, but she needed that 25% match. So all she had to do was to convince my wife and I to donate our property and house, and the next door neighbor, Barry Wakeman, to donate 25 acres of his property to serve as that match. And it was an easy sell. We said yes. This became the first Clean Ohio grant awarded to the Arc, and the first process of leveraging in-kind donations to the Arc in order to leverage the purchase of additional land. The process also established us as land stewards with the Arc, and we have continued to be that for the last 22 and a half years, where we serve as really stewards to help maintain that property. So jumping back to today, after 30 years, the Arc now manages 12,000 acres. It has 32 nature preserves. The Highlands was the first, but now there are 32. It has 11 full-time staff and 5 part-time seasonal staff. Since that initial Clean Ohio application, the Arc has been awarded 38 Clean Ohio grants for a total of $29 million, reflecting a total investment and land purchase of over $40 million. But let me be clear, that additional $11 million in investment is due to the ARC donors who have been there from the beginning and are still today supporting the land purchases, the ARC staff, and the ARC stewardship. As of the end of 2024, last month, the ARC has now expanded its horizons beyond Ohio and now owns Wild Rock Canyon, which is a 1,200-acre forest preserve in West Virginia, in the heart of the Appalachians and adjacent to the New River Gorge National Park. That's right. We've now gone beyond, over the Ohio River. We're on the other side now. And largely because West Virginia has almost 80% of it is covered by forest. As compared to Ohio, we're just about 30% of forested. In addition, the cost of land in West Virginia is about a fourth of what we have to pay for Ohio, land in Ohio. So the Ohio River isn't a boundary, it's a connector. And some of our nation's most spectacular, unprotected treasures lie on the other side of that river. These acquisitions are obviously not eligible for Clean Ohio. So the ARC is totally dependent on donors for these and many of the Ohio acquisitions as well. It also reflects the fact that Ohio land now costs about $5,000 an acre as compared to $1,200 an acre in West Virginia. And again, we're looking at a state that has almost 80% of it forested and only about a tenth of Ohio's population. And then also at the end of last year, we received a donation of 106 acres in Carter County, Kentucky. So we are now actually in 3 states. And this year actually, is an incredible array of campaigns that are underway to expand the sanctuary. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marcia. Kevin?
Hello, everybody. I'm Kevin Eigel, and thank you again for being here today. I'm just going to talk about some of my own experiences with the ARC and just also some of the initiatives that they're up to currently. So, like my wife, I've been involved with the ARC since they first started. I used to be a regular patron at the North Market, and I don't know if people used to go to the North Market, but they had a bakery there called Benevolence Bakery, which Nancy Stranahan and her former husband Larry Henry started after they had had a career as naturalists with the state of Ohio. So they retired from their state jobs and they started the bakery, but they could not stop their commitment to nature. So almost immediately after they started the bakery, they started raising money to protect very special land in Highland County, which was, people may remember, there was a place in there called the 7 Caves for people that grew up in Ohio. And they wanted to, went on the market and they wanted to protect it. They did not want to see that land get developed. So they started raising money in the bakery. They had a jar and they asked people to make donations in the jar. And so that's how I got started. We had made donations and they were eventually able to buy that property, and that was the beginning of, at that point it was called Highlands Nature Sanctuary, and it subsequently became the Arc of Appalachia. So that's how I got started with it. And then I had 2 young children at that time, and we would go down there on the weekends just as a place to get out of the city, to take hikes. They had, when they bought different properties, a lot of the properties had houses on the properties. So one of the things they did was turn those houses into lodgings so that people could go, and this is still happening today. They have, I think, like 10 or 12 places where you can go down and, rent it for a day or a week or however long you want. Some of them are bigger than others, but it's a great place to go visit, and I encourage you to do that if you've never done that. So the other thing I did was to start to take classes and to get involved in some of their activities. So for a long time, every spring they would have an event called the Wildflower Pilgrimage. And the area down in Highland County has amazing wildflowers, just incredible. If you've never seen some of the just incredible wildflowers in Ohio, that's one of the best places to see them. So every year they have an event, people come down, they have hundreds of people, they serve food, and that's a great way to get involved with what they're doing. They also have an annual donor gathering, which is usually, I think, later maybe that's in the fall every year. So those are the two things that I was doing, and that I got to know a lot of people over the years. I've seen the organization grow, and like Stan said, at first they were just buying small pieces of land and trying to piece together, bigger, collection of pieces down in the Highland County where the 7 caves used to be. So that's where a lot of the purchases took place. And as they got more experience, got more donors, got more funding from the state through the Clean Ohio funds, they have spread out a lot. So they own land now in Hocking County, in the Hocking Hills. They own land in Holmes County, which is kind of far away from their other properties. But they own land currently all over southern Ohio. And as Stan said, they've now also crossed the river and they're buying land in West Virginia. I want to just talk about some of the stuff that they're doing that's that a lot more people are finding out about and participating in. So one of the things, when they buy a larger piece of property, they often build trails on those properties. And it's open to the public, there's no charge. And they have, I think, at this point, over 80 miles of trails. They've also put together a whole land stewardship team. I think they have 6 full-time people, as well as all the equipment they need, to take out invasive species, take down fences, plant prairies, and just maintain these properties. But a big part of it is maintaining the trails. And people are using the trails. A lot of people have found out about them. I think last year, I don't rely totally on my numbers as being accurate, but I'm pretty sure that they had over 90,000 people last year that were using the trails. And they're wonderful. They're just wonderful trails even if you just go down for a day and come back, it's a wonderful thing to do. The other thing they've been involved in, this is personal interest to me, is 5 of their properties have remnants of the Hopewell culture. So I'm sure many of you know that this last year, there were 8 sites in Ohio that were designated as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And they're all sites that had structures that were built by what we call the Hopewell people that are 2,000 years old. But there are a lot more places than those 8 sites that are Hopewell sites. And the Arc of Appalachia owns 5 of those. I think 4 of them are around Chillicothe, and 1 is near Portsmouth, at a place, the site in Portsmouth is called Tremper Mound, which they just opened last year, and it's a wonderful place to visit. I encourage everybody to visit, go out and see some of these places, because they're really wonderful. They've really made a point to try to save some of the best places in Ohio for, that are preserving the natural world. One of the things they've done too is they for a long time, they've educated people about the natural world in Ohio. Every year they have a number of classes, and on your chairs, you'll see a copy of the annual magazine. Every year they publish an annual magazine, which has a lot of great articles, really well-written articles, and there's information in there about the Hopewell sites, but there's also a sheet that talks about the classes that they offer. So you can look at that, but my wife and I have participated in a lot of those classes over the years, and we've learned a lot about nature. I I know a lot more than I used to. I would call myself an amateur naturalist at this point, and the more I learn, the more fascinating I find it. In nature is like the more you learn, the more I learn, I just find it incredibly fascinating, just the complexity and the beauty of nature. And I know a lot of you are gardeners, you're outside working, and you know what I'm talking about. And you can understand why, they want to save as much of this as possible. The other thing they've done, and this is an outgrowth of some of the classes, is they've had classes on learning about the native birds that are in Ohio and the birds that migrate, from places to the south to Ohio. So one of the things they've done is formed a cooperative relationship with a group in Guatemala. It's called the Community Cloud Forest Conservation. And they're focusing on, there's 38 species of birds that migrate between Ohio and Guatemala. Some of our favorite birds, like hummingbirds, orioles, a lot of the warblers. And there's currently actually a group from the Arc of Appalachia that is in Guatemala this week. I think there's a group of like 15 people that are in Guatemala right now. And the director of that organization was in Ohio last year. So that relationship is growing, and hopefully they'll do more in the future. So the other thing I just wanted to mention was the new initiative of buying land in West Virginia. So the ARC has just been slowly growing over the last 30 years. And what they have realized is that the dollars go a lot further in West Virginia. So in the last year, they purchased the largest piece of property that they purchased to date. It's 1,200 acres, and it's near the New River Gorge in West Virginia. So they just purchased that. I was able to go down there last year when they were purchasing it, and it's beautiful. It's 1,200 acres of hardwood forest. It has been logged a little bit, but a lot of the trees are over 100 years old, and the place is full of black bears and bobcats and all kinds of warblers. Just a beautiful piece of property. So they want to do more of that. They're currently looking. If you go to the website, and I encourage everybody to go to the website because there's a lot of great information on there, you can see that what the campaigns they currently have going and what properties they're trying to purchase, for this year. So there is one other property in West Virginia that's another almost 1,500 acres, and it's a 5-mile stretch of land along the Gully River, which would also, really be another beautiful piece of property for them to preserve. So I just want to say, I really have enjoyed being part of the Appalachia. And I believe, just personally, land conservation is one of the most important things that I can be involved in. We've all seen how our natural world keeps getting more and more diminished and disturbed as human development, does what it does. So I think it's really important for us to save as much of this as possible. As climate change gets worse, we don't know what's going to happen, but there's still all these beautiful places we can save. And so I am committed to doing that, and I'm really happy to be part of this organization that's the work that they're doing. So I know a lot of people in the room are gardeners, master gardeners, and we've all seen the importance of planting native plants, taking out invasive species. Well, the ARC is doing that on a big scale. So we know how important that is. And I just encourage everybody to get involved, find out more about this organization, participate in some of their activities. There's plenty of opportunities for volunteers. There's tons of volunteers involved in the work that they're doing. And it's a great group of people. I love going to their events, seeing people that I know, and they're people that I have a lot in common with, people that I like to be around. So It's easy to get involved too. If you go to their website, you can get on the mailing list. If you make a $50 donation, you can get their annual magazine. So that's one really good way to support them. So I'll bring this to a close with a quote from Nancy Stranahan, the director. She has written that none of us can save the world by ourselves, but we can work together to save a few chosen corners. So, with that, welcome Marcia.
I'm back. This time you get my words. Let me see. No, I wanted to show you a few other pictures. Maybe I'm too far away. Oh. So this shows the areas where the property are. The blues up there are the area in Holmes County, and then all over the southern Ohio area, not including West Virginia yet, or Kentucky. It's still not.
I'll manually do it. Can I borrow the
Oh,
clicker?
okay.
Can I borrow this?
Yeah, just leave it there. That's good. I just wanted to give you one of the beautiful views here. So my assignment is to tell you a little bit about the education. And there are lots of ways of doing it, as Kevin and Stan have both mentioned. So I'm going to jump right in to the courses. This is my favorite way, probably, of learning about our natural world. So look around this room. I wasn't sure there would be people here this morning, as I said, but look around this room. You're all here together. Imagine if you knew everybody's name in this room, you knew where they lived and what kind of area they like to live in, if you knew something about them that would help them thrive. Maybe if you knew their favorite food. Maybe it'd be so interesting to know what they wanted to do or what their job already was in the world that we know that brings wealth to this world. This is what we're doing in these courses. We're creating a deeper community, not just within ourselves here, yes, for that. Like, wouldn't it be great if we all knew each other? It'd be so wonderful. But now, wouldn't it be greater if we knew all of everything that was here in the world? So, first of all, whatever course you take, and they're all listed on your plan of events, whatever course you take, you can be sure that the teachers you have are going to be world-class teachers. Because of who they are in the Ark, they're connected with great naturalists literally all over the world, and they all flock here to support your learning. My first course, okay, let's see, I have a great picture of a big tree. See if we can get to that tree. It might be the next one. No? Okay, that's another beautiful one. There you go. Back to the tree. How do you feel when you see that? Isn't that incredible? So my first course and their first course was a 5-day tree course. I think I'll be able to see this better with glasses. They promised during these 5 days that I would learn 50 native trees and shrubs by name and habitat. Like most of us, I already knew some trees, although in those days, there wasn't the awareness of native plants that there is now, so I didn't really know which trees I knew were native and which were not. I wasn't that ambitious about trying to get all 50 trees because, I didn't want it to be stressful. I wanted it to be wonderful. If I learned a few new trees, I would have been satisfied. So imagine my surprise to take a quiz at the end of the class. I had learned all 50 trees. I couldn't believe it. And even better, the next year, after a whole year of being around, I still knew most of them. I thought that was pretty cool. We learned by habitat, and this is something that they do a lot with a lot of their programs. because I learned where they lived, it helped me to understand their ecosystem, and I'll never forget the hillside I visited with beeches and maples standing together. I'll never forget learning about tree succession, how locust trees can tolerate lots of sun and come in naturally at the beginning of a reforestation process along the edges of meadows or perhaps along the edges of disturbed areas. They and other trees lay the foundation for the shade-loving trees to come later. To this day, I'm also still good friends with the people I met in that course. Several of them are very close friends. So the people that are attending the courses with you are very wonderful. When I came home, I realized that I had already been living with most of these trees. I had seen them as trees, but not as hackberry trees, not as hickory trees, specific trees whose names I knew. I felt a new connection and a new community with those trees, and still I can greet them by name as I walk by. I'm a teacher by vocation, and I understand that there's a kind of mutual welcoming that happens in a room where we all know each other's names and we care about each other. That's what it feels like when I come home from a course. My community is wider and broader and richer. And trees, while the biggest, are not the only members of our natural community. How about some of our smaller members? We took the course on singing insects, Nature's Chorus, the first time it was offered. We are so lucky in Ohio to have the gifted teacher Lisa Rainsong, who's active socially on social media, and she comes to almost all the events at the Arc, and she has her own training called Singing Insects. During the day, she gave us lectures and showed us pictures of what we were going to see at night, and then at night, we'd go out every night under the stars, and we'd look for singing insects. Okay, so here's a quiz. I know a lot of you are very knowledgeable, but what are the singing insects in Ohio? Did I hear crickets? Okay, what else? Cicadas. Katydids, yay! Do you think you could recognize them if you saw them? Or hear them? I know I'm in an unusual group, you guys know a lot. And maybe you could learn even more. As they start their singing in early summer, they brighten our days and our nights. Maybe we can't recognize as many crickets and katydids and cicadas as you do trees, and of course for you all in this group, the plants that you know, but we would miss them if they're gone. These singing insects are such an important part of the soundscape of Ohio. I didn't really know anything about them. I just thought this is a course the Arc is taking. It fits in my schedule. I'm going to go there. It changed my life. During this course, not only did I learn about the singing insects and like how to recognize them, but I also learned about citizen scientists. You see, there's not hardly any money for studying singing insects. No university has a specialty in, oh, let's do research on the singing insects. And so what we learned from Lisa and her co-teacher, Will Hirschberger, more on him in a minute, is that we are the ones doing the research. So they would tell us what they knew, and then they would say, here's what to look for. If you see something different, let us know. Because we are the ones doing the research. And in fact, one night we went out looking for katydids, and someone in the group saw something that didn't look like something that they had already seen on the pictures that we had been showed. And sure enough, it was a katydid that was not known in our area. Lisa and Will were super excited. They took 10 million pictures. And then we learned later the next day they'd sent those pictures to all of their fellow citizen scientists who loved katydids. Apparently there's a lot. And what they realized is it was a katydid from further south, and likely it's moving north because of climate change, but it had never been seen in that part of the state. The other thing that's really amazing about taking these courses at the Arc is that not only are the teachers excellent caliber, but the students are excellent caliber. Now, Kevin and I were pretty beginning students in a lot of the courses we took, but naturalists of all types would show up to learn something more about things that they didn't know about. And so, for example, Oh, we met this wonderful woman at the Singing Insect Courts, Laura Hughes. Do any of you know who she is? She's a wonderful naturalist in the state of Ohio. She posts on Instagram. You should follow her, Laura Hughes. She just today I saw baby bobcats playing in the snow. Anyway, she was there learning about katydids, which wasn't her area of specialty, but one of her areas of specialty was spiders. So we're walking along at night and she goes, "Oh my gosh, this is a bolus spider." And we're all going, do we care? Like, should we be excited or scared, worried? And we got really, really excited. Raise your hand if you've ever heard or seen of a bolus spider. Okay, yay for you guys. All right, so bolus spider is a spider that does not make a web. It makes, I guess you could call it a lure. It has its silky thread, and then it has a sticky ball that it weaves a sticky ball. And then it sends out pheromones, up to 3 sex pheromones, that attract male insects and moths. And when it senses, because they're so sensitive, they can feel the wings flying. When they feel the vibration of an insect nearby, they go fishing with their bolus. And they swing it around, whap, the sticky bolus catches the moth, draws it back up, eats it or saves it, depending on its hunger. Like, who even knew? I mean, I didn't even know to imagine that there was something that weirdly wonderful there. And I learned that not from the teacher, but from Laura. Laura's at almost all the events of the Arc, too. So if you go on a trip that somebody else leads, I always stand next to her because I'll learn more. But this is the caliber, this is the community that the Arc has developed. All right. We've taken almost all their courses, but the one that we just did this year, which both terrified me and also called me in, was Birds by Song. Like many of you, I'm guessing you all are bird lovers and maybe even bird watchers. And I've been out looking for birds and binoculars, and I've never been able to learn their songs, which is really important if you're a bird watcher, because once the leaves come out, you can't see the birds anymore. So unless they're flying across the sky and you get a really good look there, learning their song is really, really important to identifying them and to knowing, again, who's in our community. But after all these years, I've come to trust the Arc, and I think, well, maybe I'll learn a couple of birds. And the worst thing that could happen, right, is you end up out in the woods for 5 days with really cool people. Like, there's no downside, really. So we learned the most common native birds of Ohio, again, through habitat. We went into the woods. The cool thing about learning by habitat is if you hear a bird song in the woods, there's a limit to how many birds live in the deep woods. So you might hear a wood thrush, or you might hear a red vireo, or you might hear a flycatcher of some kind. You're never going to hear a meadowlark in the woods, so you know not even to guess meadowlark. And so our teachers taught us by location. We were out in the woods. We heard these same, I think in the woods we maybe focused on 5 to 7 of the most common birds, with like another 10 or 12 that we would hear sometimes. But we heard those birds over and over again. And by gosh, I learned a bunch of them. And then we'd go into the grasslands and we'd see meadowlarks and other grassy birds, including a bird I'd never even heard of before called a dickcissel, which we came home and found at Patel Darby Park the next week. Anyway, there's also a whole series of birds that are like what are called the edge birds. So the edges of forests, the edges of meadows, birds like that you might be familiar with, like the indigo bunting, one of the most beautiful birds ever. Also the blue grosbeak. Have you seen a blue grosbeak? Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? It's like I was standing there going, my mouth hanging open. Okay, well, I don't have pictures of all those. My slideshow is very minimal, but so be it. You can go look them up. So we were outside, we were in gorgeous settings with amazing teachers. We got home, And I think it was the first or second morning after this course, I was lying in bed and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'm going to play for you what I heard. Here's quiz time. Give you one more chance. Do you know who that bird is? This is the bird, and the day before our course was over, I went whining to our wonderful teacher and said, I just cannot lure that bird. Help me figure out how to recognize that bird. I love that bird so much, and I can't recognize it. And I forget what she said or what we did about it, but maybe it was just that I heard it a few more times. That's the indigo bunting, one of my most favorite birds. It's bright, bright, bright blue. It's so gorgeous. And I lay in bed and I said, Kevin, that's an indigo bunting right outside our window. Well, we'd never seen an indigo bunting on our farm. I'd heard birds before, but I didn't know I was hearing an indigo bunting. I can't tell you how, I mean, you can probably tell from how I'm acting. I was so joyous and excited from that experience. And we heard the indigo bunting the whole rest of the summer. For 6 weeks, it was on the side of our farm where our house is, and it would wake me up in the morning. And then the next 6 weeks, it seemed to move over to the other side of the farm where I'd have to go outside to hear it, but I'd go out and maybe pick some vegetables or something and be like, oh, there it is, the indigo bunting. The blue grosbeak, by the way, we also saw at the park soon after we went to our course. It enriches our lives so much to know who lives with us. I was so excited. And we did see the indigo bunting a couple of times, but the number of times that I heard it compared to the number of times that I saw it, I got to be aware of its presence in our world. So one more thing, remember I said I was coming back to Will Hirschberger, who was the teacher of the Singing Insects course. Will Hirschberger created the recording of the bird call that I just gave you. It's on the Merlin Bird app, which most of you have probably heard of, and citizen scientists like Will go around the country, for him especially the Midwest and the East Coast, and they record birds and they send it to Merlin so Merlin can have recordings of all the birds that we love. It's such a, like, don't you love that he does that? It's such a cool thing for someone to do. Let's see, I've got a great picture. Scroll down a little bit. I want to see if I can get this picture of the wildflower pilgrimage. So that's a beautiful waterfall. Take a walk, but keep going. Okay, here we go. So you probably know what trillium is, and if you have gardens like most of us in Ohio, you probably have a few trillium here, but during the wildflower pilgrimage, this is a portion of a hillside of trillium. And talk about taking your breath away. It's just unbelievable. As Kevin said, it's every year, usually mid-April, dozens of hikes with knowledgeable people, lots of volunteers. And then in the evenings, they invite famous guests to come give talks about all kinds of things. We've heard the world expert on bats, for example. We've also seen Doug Tallamy there, which I know he was part of a Zoom conference here in Bexley a few years ago. But we got to see him in person, and I have a selfie with me and Doug, which is one of my favorite pictures ever. As you probably know, he's one of the people who's really fostered the idea of putting native plants in our backyards. Don't just count on the parks to do it, which they probably won't. It has to be us giving food and shelter to the creatures we live with. You just can't, if you haven't, raise your hand if you've been to the wildflower pilgrimage. Oh, honey, as gardeners, you need to go. Oh, okay, put this on your list. Mid-April, they're already taking registrations. There's nice places to stay down there. You could drive down from here if you want to. You must go. The scenery itself is stunning. Here's the other thing I learned from a talk from Nancy at the wildflower pilgrimage maybe last year, was that this area of southern Ohio is the best place for wildflowers like this in the world because of the geology, these karst rocks they're called, and because of the topography and the soil. You cannot find wildflower stands like this in other parts of the world. This is it. This is the Mecca right here. Maybe that's why they call it the pilgrimage. Okay. One more thing I want to talk about, because I can't get out of here without talking about caterpillars. When I was talking to somebody who was giving a talk about saving nature, and they said, your goal is to figure out what your bottom line is. Like, what do you need to save? And I immediately thought, caterpillars. And I was like, oh, is that right? And I'm like, yes, it's right. Because moths and caterpillars are the foundation of so much of what happens in the animal world. And they're so cool and diverse. You can't believe the variety of caterpillars and moths that you can see in one weekend at the Arc of Appalachia. The great thing about caterpillars is that they're food for everything else. Poor babies. You get to watch them for a few days, and then they're out in the woods and something's munching on them. That's a really good thing, though, because a lot of things that we love require caterpillars to grow up. So 99% or maybe 95% of all caterpillars are eaten by something else, which we also love. And then they're also hosts to like all kinds of wasps. And I mean, I'm not even going to say much about it. You just have to go to the Mothapalooza, which this year is in July. All right, so you've got an event in April, you have another event in July, because you will be there with your mouth hanging open going, how is this even possible? Okay, last thing I want to say personally, and then Stan will close out. As I've learned more and more about our natural world through the Arc and many other ways, but I would say the Arc has been fundamental for me in learning about nature. I can see the preciousness of all life, and you can probably tell from my excitement how much I love it. My heart just loves these beings that we live with. And also, I feel the joy of that love, and I feel the concern of what will happen to them. As their habitat is diminished, we are all at risk, not just them, but all of us. We are part of an interwoven whole that is frayed and tearing. I find an urgency in my own conservation work these days to do what I can while there is still something here to save. This is the work of the Arc, and thank goodness for them and their vision 30 years ago. We don't need to do this alone. It's hopeless and frightening to try to do this alone, but together we can be in community and save the parts that we can. So Stan's going to say a few more words about what we're working on coming up, and then we'll take time for questions.
Well, I certainly hope this whetted your appetite. The Arc is an amazing story, it's an amazing place, and it's an amazing community. And in this time and age, it's even more critical that all of us get involved and get connected in this kind of an endeavor. This is probably the most important time ever in human and world history to engage in wildlands preservation. Before the window closes. And we heard language earlier this week that removes us from the Paris Climate Accord, that rescinds green initiatives, drill baby drill. This is a very critical time at this point. And so I want to give you some options and ability to connect with us. You have your annual report on your lap, and if you go to the last page, there is a page of information about how to connect. And at the bottom of the page is the Arc's website, which is arcofappalachia.org. So I would urge you, when you go home today, sit down at your computer and pull up the website for the Arc of Appalachia. And on the home page, you're going to see a block that says Current Land Campaigns. And click on that, and you'll come up with 12 campaigns that the Arc is currently very much involved in, that involves 3,700 acres in 8 counties, as well as the outstanding balance yet on the Wild Rock Canyon in West Virginia. 3 of those campaigns are listed in the annual report that you have there, and those being, if I can get them here, not only the Wild Rock Canyon, but Cliff Run and Simon Woods are also listed in your annual report. But there are 9 other ones listed on the computer. So please look at those. A $10 donation gets you connected by email to the Arc. A $50 donation, as Kevin said, gets you the annual report, annual magazine. So there's almost no small donation, but get connected. There's a campaign that's not on the website at this point, and Kevin made reference to it, because the Arc is currently pursuing the purchase of 1,300 acres, again in West Virginia, but this time on the Gauley River, which is one of the 10 most important rafting rivers in the world. This campaign is scheduled to go public later on this spring, and would hope for a completion by fall. So it's important, again, to be connected so that you can learn about that particular campaign. We know that there will be a lot of support, both from Ohio and West Virginia, but the Arc already has donors from 40 states in this nation contributing to the success of the Arc. So we're very much looking forward to that, and would urge you to please get connected. And with that, I'd be open to any questions you might have. And Kevin and Marcia.
Thank you, Kevin, Marcia, and Stan, for a fascinating program about such an amazing place. Thank you for your passion, you know. Thank you for caring. It truly is a special place. And who's up for a road trip? Because I'm ready. I'm coming down. I'll be there in April if I can. So does anybody have any questions? Okay, I do. At this point, has the state of West Virginia ever been approached about doing something similar as to what Ohio does with their program, with the matching? Has Nancy pursued anything like that?
There's currently not any program like that.
You have to talk in the mic.
There we go. Yeah, as far as I'm aware, there's no program like that in West Virginia. The Clean Ohio is just an Ohio program.
Okay.
But does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess. I was just curious because, you know, it's such a great program.
But they're learning, because it's a new thing to be in West Virginia. They're learning. Maybe Hope has more information about that.
I don't know about West Virginia, but this is the 25th anniversary of the Clean Ohio Fund in Ohio.
Yeah.
And I hope that you all will write your state representative and your state senator and thank them for that program, because not only does it help preserve lands, it helps to make trails, it helps to do all sorts of things that are important to us in Ohio. And if it hadn't started with Governor Taft, it wouldn't be here today. So I hope that you all will thank your representatives for that.
Thank you, Governor Taft.
Encourage them to keep it going, because 25 years is a long time for anything.
Yeah. It's been a wonderful program for conservation.
I wonder if there was any encouragement from Governor Taft's wife?
Maybe.
I don't know, but I have a few other things. If any of you all are concerned about the Ohio River watershed basin, and I don't want to steal your show, but I know Nancy, I emailed Nancy about this morning. The Ohio river watershed basin, in fact, they call it the Ohio River Basin, is creating a campaign that will go before Congress, hopefully this year, that will give the Ohio River Basin the same protection as the Great Lakes Basin, as the Chesapeake, as the Colorado River, as every other basin you can think of except the Ohio River. And it's going to need your support. There's going to be an informational meeting in Cincinnati on the 27th. So if you want more information about that, let me know and I'll send you some information on that. Mm-hmm. Yes, a week from Monday. Monday, I guess it is, yeah. So it's going to be a very big campaign that's going to need a lot of support from a lot of people in order to get it through this Congress. Or the next Congress, whatever it takes. The National Wildlife Federation is heading it up, and so it's going to be a big national campaign. There are 14 states that are in the Ohio River Basin, and to get them all coordinated is going to be a real trick. So we're going to need your help and support. And then I don't know if Nancy has protected any of the land around our nature areas and our state parks, but there is a big effort right now to let fracking occur around the Egypt Valley Wildlife Area and the Hocking Hollow Wildlife Area. And the Ohio Environmental Council is heading up that effort to let people know that can do something about it, that they should do something about it. So if you want more information of that, look at the Ohio Environmental Council website.
Okay, great.
And thank you. And definitely go visit the Arc. It has, very close to here, I think, one of the rarest plants in Ohio. I think it's called, and I think Deborah can tell me for sure, is it called Sullivantii?
Are you talking about
The little plant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's located right here. Right
That's what I thought of.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. It's a wonderful place to go and visit. It's a wonderful place to go and pull invasive species because you will learn a great deal about that. It's a wonderful place to go stay. I learned a lot about being an amateur naturalist by going and spending time there. So thank you all for being.
Well, the plant that Hope is mentioning, which is Sullivantii, was first described by the Sullivan that was started Franklinton. Sullivan and his wife were both naturalists, and they would come down to this area for a cool vacation, and that plant is all over the website of the wife, whose first name I forget, in Greenlawn Cemetery.
Any other questions?
No, trust me.
we can
I know
hear you.
you are, but you're not loud enough.
Okay. Then you put one of these in my face and I become a mouse. Anyway, I'm wondering if you partner with, collaborate, exchange notes with other groups such as yourself, like the Tecumseh Land Trust in the Yellow Springs area.
I don't know if I can speak authoritatively about any of that, but they are acting as a land trust, so they can hold conservation easements. And they may be part of a network of, land trust in Ohio. I'm not really sure. But they do have relationships with other conservation organizations that are similar. Yes.
There is a very close relationship with the Nature Conservancy in that part of the state as well.
There you go.
Anyone else?
On my way.
Can you talk a little bit about how the group identifies land to purchase and what that process is like?
Well, yeah, this is where we need Nancy here. Right now, though, what's happening is because the Arc has a pretty big profile, people are coming to them to say, we want to sell this land, do you want to buy it first? And so that's a lot of the land, or maybe we want to donate the land to you. And so then that is one of the ways. And because of, again, the network of living in a community, they are getting lots of tips from people in the various areas of the states and neighbors nearby. You may know that.
But there's also the difficulty of making sure that the property is special. And so it's not just a matter of somebody saying, oh, I want to donate the land. It has to meet qualifications too. But again, it's because of the network that already exists that there's more opportunity coming to them than having to search for it at this point.
Stan made a really good point. Like in the land in West Virginia, when that land came up for sale, they did what we call a bio-blitz, which is who among our naturalists are free these 3 days coming up next week. We're going to go down and we're going to investigate and see what is actually here, what kind of biodiversity is there. And when they did that in the land that is being finished, being purchased now, they found unbelievable diversity because they took the naturalists down there to look and make sure. So it's a very wonderful process, and then we all get to hear about it, and then we know what to go look for when we go there to visit.
I will just add on to that. Marcia said they have really amazing naturalists that are associated with the Arc of Appalachia. People who's, well, some have had their whole professional life has been, studying nature. Some of these people have had high-level positions in different organizations, but there's a lot of really knowledgeable people associated with the Arc, and they're all volunteers at this point. But, yeah. Any other
That's
questions?
amazing. Anybody else? Well, thank you so much for coming out on this very brutal, cold winter day. I dread going back outside. I do want to mention, too, since we were talking about trees, and as everybody in here knows, Bexley is an arboretum, right? Our April program, which I didn't really mention, but I just want to bring it up real quickly, is going to be Amy Stewart, who has written a new book called The Tree Collectors. I don't know if any of you have read it, but if you haven't, it's a great book. It's about people all over the world who literally collect trees. And so in honor of Arbor Day, we're bringing her in, and we are very excited about that. So you'll be hearing more about that in the future. Thank you again for coming out. Thank you for supporting this group, this program. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you next month, February 12th, same time, same place. Thanks.